Hey, how's everyone doing today? Grab your coffee. It is on the east coast of the good old USA. It is summertime, so we're entering into the dog days of summer. Which means there's not a whole lot of Final Cut Pro news, but we're going to see what we got going forward. Here's a couple of things we want to talk about today. Have our first comment from Spencer Lewis. Good morning and coffee drinking from Spot, Philadelphia. Spot is his nickname. Philadelphia is the city he's in. He's also on the East Coast. And we got our friend Eric Emmerich also. So Eric, I think were you at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit ever? I thought you mentioned that at one point that you were, because one of the things we're going to lightly discuss this morning is the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit 2023. I switched my drink to this new stuff. It's called Hint. It's like water with a little teeny bit of flavor from fruit juices or something. Eric says, nope, never been. But my friend Torgrim has. Oslo, summer is here, and Tour de France is on. Wow, Tour de France. Torgrim was at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit in 2019. We met up there, had a good time. That was the last in-person Creative Summit. Since then, 2019 was the last one. We didn't have one in 2020. I think they had a virtual one in 2021 and 2022. But I've been saying this for months that I think we're going to have another in-person Creative Summit in Cupertino in 2023. It has not been announced yet. That's for sure. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because I think it is going to happen. Hello from the Netherlands. It is a sunny, windy day here, 15, and Wimbledon final. There you go. Netherlands, Oslo. Eric, are you from Florida? I know Spencer is from Philly, so I know where he is on the East Coast. Eric is, maybe, I'm not sure. Tell me where you're from so we know. So we got a few things to talk about today, even though it is the summertime. I missed my American friends in 2019, but not sure I can go this time. Absolutely. Eric says, pulled the trigger on new Studio Ultra, fully loaded, except just 64 gigabytes of RAM. Yes, Florida. Doesn't that sound funny? Just 64 gigabytes of RAM in 2023. It just sounds so funny because used to be we got 16, 32 was a lot. Now 64, you're saying just 64. What do I have on this machine? I'm not even sure about this. My MacBook, what do I have? Yeah, I got 64. I got 64 on my MacBook too, and it's been fine. I also have the Studio Ultra with 2 terabyte SSD and 64 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, that looks like the machine that I'd be getting if I was going to get another desktop, but I'm going to stick with my MacBook Pro as far as I can tell. I don't know why. I go from one startup disk to another, and for some reason my notes text size doesn't come across. The note itself does, but the text size is smaller on this one, so I have to boost it up always. So I'm going to enjoy my coffee. I'm headed out to Frederick, Maryland Eric says, I haven't seen any advantage in having more RAM for the cost. Yeah, especially Apple prices. I think 64 is a pretty good, pretty sweet spot. That's what I have. I mean, they don't give you a RAM option on your phones. But I got a 1 terabyte SSD on my phone, which is really expensive. It really bumps the price up. So do SSDs on the Mac. They bump the price up pretty good too. So I'll be looking at the iPhone 15 Pro Max when it comes out in September. I presume it'll be out in September. They're talking about it having a periscope lens for the zoom, so they can do a longer zoom range. So it won't just be 3. Right now we got 3. About Final Cut Pro, wondering why Apple never solved the clicking noise in multicam. Boy, I tell you, I've been hearing about clicking noise when you make a cut in a multicam clip for years. I mean, literally for years. It isn't anything new. And I don't know why in LumaFusion, you can separate the audio, so you only cut the video and the audio track stays the same. But this specifically, what you're talking about, in the current version of Final Cut 10.6.6, if you make a cut in the multicam and the audio has effects on it, it creates a click. There's problems with audio and multicams. Audio in general, we need some audio updates in Final Cut for sure. And of all the things they're working on, I bet you they're working on a mixer. I bet you they're working on an audio mixer that hopefully will solve some of these issues. Eric says, need the 8 terabytes of storage bumping into the 4 terabyte limit on my MacBook Pro. I have 4 terabytes on my MacBook Pro, and I have 56 terabyte RAID 5, and I have 2 12 terabyte RAID 5s, I think, 2 other ones. And then I have multiple SSDs. So I take stuff off the 4 terabytes once it gets to the point that starts getting less than a terabyte left, and I transfer it to one of those. I always back it up. If I put it on the RAID 5, I always have 1 or 2 extra copies before I erase it. So, because on my MacBook Pro, I have a lot of audio files, samples and things I have multiple audio interfaces. I have Easy Drummer, and I have Easy Keys and Easy Bass, and they have a lot of samples you have to download, gigabytes of samples. And then I have a bunch with Logic Pro as well. Speaking of Logic Pro was updated this week. Bug fixes. So one of Apple's Pro apps did get an update in the summer. I don't know. I'm going to presume we're going to get maybe a bug fix update to Final Cut Pro over the summer. I don't think we're going to see anything big. It's really hard to guess because Apple, they like to mess with us when we guess things. Sometimes their hands are restricted by what Apple corporate allows them to do. 2019, at the Creative Summit, I was expecting Final Cut Pro 10.5 to be announced. It wasn't announced, I think, for a year later. I think it came out a year later in 2020, I think. But it didn't come out at the 2019 Creative Summit. There wasn't any new announcement at the Creative Summit in 2019 at all. We did get to meet with the team. We did see their presentation at One Infinite Loop. That much I can talk about. I can't talk about much else because I just can't. But anyway, what I'm hoping is in person at the Creative Summit, Cupertino, back at the Juniper Hotel, back to 3 days or so of sessions, which I don't go for the sessions. I go to meet my friends in person, have dinner, lunch, and I'll be streaming news about the summit live, of course, to people. I go to my hotel room at night and talk about the events of the day. I do some live streaming from the hotel room lobby. Some of the events I'll do live streaming, not the entire event, just partial. But if there's going to be a Final Cut Pro 10.7/11 announcement, that's a good time to announce it at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. So something's going to happen in 2023. Don't you think? Don't you think something with Final Cut Pro is going to happen in 2023? That's some good coffee. I like my coffee strong. I use double scoops. So it's like in between regular coffee and espresso. And then I put real cream in it. So that's my favorite. But it's like double shot of espresso. It's not espresso, but I use double scoops. So it's really, really strong. Rhett says he hopes. What do you hope? For 10.7 or Final Cut Pro 11? I mean, look, they have to be working on something big. Let's hope. If they're not working on something big, what in the world are they doing? Because we're not seeing it in updates to Final Cut. We're just seeing a bolt-on here, a bug fix there, bolt-on, bug fix. You know, people say, and I'm not dismissing, people say, oh, I edit my film in Final Cut. It has everything that I need. It's perfect the way it is. It's not perfect the way it is. If it has everything you need, that's fine. That's fine. I edit with it. You know, it's what I go to most of the time. Sometimes I go to Resolve, sometimes I go to LumaFusion. Anything that shows us they're still in the game. Baltimore producer. Hey, Baltimore. It's right close to me. Yeah, we need that. We need Apple to step up. They wrote the letter, was it a year ago? Oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Well, they have a few secret meetings with Hollywood people and people over in Europe, but that doesn't do the rest of us any good. That doesn't do the 5 million Final Cut Pro editors any good because you're keeping them secret. I know they're happening. Michael Yanovich said they're happening, but he can't say, he's allowed to say that, but he's not allowed to say anything about the context, which is fine. But well, what about the rest of us? The other millions of users outside of Hollywood, outside of what's going on in Europe. We need signs of life with Final Cut Pro. Now, whatever that's going to be, is it going to be Final Cut 11 or Final Cut 10.7? Don't know. So one of the peculiar things that happened this week was, let me pull that up. I mean, I was kind of surprised. Let me pull this up. I was kind of surprised. Let me just get this ready. There we go. So let's go here. FCPX.TV, all things Final Cut Pro. Been around since Final Cut Pro 10 was announced. It's easy to start a podcast or to start a website. What's hard is to keep it going year after year, month after month, week after week. It's easy to start one. It's easy to start one. It's hard to keep it going. FCPX.TV has been around since the inception of Final Cut Pro, so it's been around for 12 years. So look at this. You go to this main page there, and I'm going to click on this. No Final Cut on iPad for you. It's like the soup Nazi in Seinfeld. And I said, as if we needed another reason, yet another reason Apple app subscriptions that can be remotely turned off. Another reason against Apple app subscriptions that can be remotely turned off. So we have No Final Cut for iPad for You, the Apple soup Nazi from Seinfeld. Apple turns off Final Cut iPad subscriptions in Russia. They turned off the subscriptions. Okay? They turned off the subscriptions. They allowed them, and then they turned them off. Now, I researched this a little bit further, and I found out that Apple has restricted sales to Russia since the war started. So this is not unusual. So here it is. This is in 2020. This is in 2022. Apple halts sales of products to Russia, restricts access to Russian news app. This was March the 1st, 2022. So Apple restricted their app store, but it says Apple has halted all sales and products to Russia due to the country's invasion of Ukraine. It says stopped Apple Pay services. Apple also restricted the apps for Russia state news. It says the App Store will still function and users in Russia will be able to update their software. But I guess the point is, at one point they allowed Final Cut on iPad and Final Cut and Final Cut Logic on iPad, Logic Pro on iPad, and then they just stopped. They allowed it initially, and then they stopped the subscription. At least that's what the information that I've got that I can partake of. So this is where the article came from. Apple Insider, Logic and Final Cut Pro for iPad are no longer available for users in Russia. No longer. So at one point they were, and then Apple turned off the subscription. I'm not sure why, but it's not unusual because Apple has restricted a lot of things in Russia, except the App Store. Russian App Store users reported that they could no longer subscribe to Apple's new Logic and Final Cut Pro for the iPad. So I guess the point, I'm not going to get into the good or bad of Russia and the war. Of course, wars are bad. My point is, this demonstrates if you do something that Apple doesn't like, they can turn off your app if you have a subscription. Suppose you posted something. Are they going to extend this? Are they going to extend this to censorship on social media? Who in the heck knows? The point is that they can. And they've demonstrated they have turned off the subscription service to Russia. So, I'm not so comfortable with being able to turn off a subscription service remotely. FX Factory release transcribed this week for $39. Very accurate, even includes text for SFX. That's very cool. I don't have that. Well, after Larry Jordan's kind of harsh article, I am feeling a bit disappointed by my favorite NLE. So Larry Jordan's just telling the truth. He's just saying, look, Final Cut Pro is falling way behind everybody else. Now, I'm not saying the Final Cut Pro is bad. I'm just saying it is stagnated. It is frozen in time. Up to that point in time, it was pretty cool. But since then, for the last 3 or 4 years, it's really stagnated. There's been no innovation. Now, some people will jump up and say, Oh, but I can do everything I want in Final Cut Pro. I'm glad that you're satisfied with the stagnation of Final Cut Pro. I'm not. I'm not satisfied with the stagnation of Final Cut Pro. I'm not satisfied. I want to see the same kind of updates and new features and innovation that they had between 10.0 and 10.4. We should also boycott Apple for introducing subscription. Bunch of hypocrites. I'm not going to get into the war. That's not what I was trying to point out. I'm just trying to point out they have demonstrated that they can and they will turn off your subscription. What else are they going to add to their reasons for turning off your subscription? Is this going to be the only thing? Do you think they'll turn off subscriptions for other reasons in the future? They can't turn off my Final Cut Pro because I bought it. By the way, if you bought Final Cut Pro in 2011, June 21st, 2011, thereabouts, you're paying, as of June or July, you're paid $2.08 a month for it versus more than double that for Final Cut for iPad, which is $4.99 a month. There's a couple good things about Final Cut. There's a lot of good things about Final Cut for iPad. I don't want to say that there's not. But one of the good things, the rare good things about the subscription service is you can do it a month at a time. You can do $4.99 for 1 month and then don't subscribe for 2 or 3 months or 5 months, whatever, and then subscribe again for 1 month. That's what I do with Netflix, Apple TV, all these subscription television services. I subscribe when there's a whole bunch of programs available. And at the end, I'll watch them on weekends, and then I'll unsubscribe. Right now, I'm not subscribed to Apple TV, for example. Although I've started 2 or 3 different shows on there, I'm going to wait until the seasons are finished and I can watch a bunch of stuff, and then I'll subscribe again for a month. And stagnation can mean end of life. That's the worrisome part. I'm not disagreeing with that statement, Rhett. I'm not disagreeing with that. Am I out here like a cheerleader and saying, oh, everything's fine, don't worry about it? No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I think there's a big update coming, Final Cut Pro 11. Or it could be 10.7 because Final Cut Pro 11 is not available yet. But I wouldn't bet any money on that's what's happening because I pay attention to actions. Actions are saying something is happening with Final Cut Pro. Whether that's good, as in Final Cut Pro 11, and they're working their butts off on that, or even a new version of Final Cut Pro 10.7 if 11's not ready yet, or they're going to continue the stagnation of Final Cut Pro. We got all these features for you up to this point, and that's all we're going to do. We're not going to innovate anymore because people that say Final Cut has everything that I need. I can tell you 10 things that you'd like to have in Final Cut. Did you say you also said Final Cut had everything you needed before we got dupe detection? The same people. They said Final Cut has everything I need before they had other features. They always say that Final Cut has everything I need. It has a lot of what you need, but there's other things that you could use. There's absolutely other things that you can use that Final Cut doesn't have. Who doesn't want a mixing board in Final Cut? Instead of the clunky way of jumping in and out of compound clips and you have no control, you have no master volume control over the whole project. So a mixing board, a good sophisticated mixing board, however they're going to do that. Who doesn't want compound clips to expand in the timeline in place? Instead of jumping to another timeline, It has no relationship to the timeline that you're in, the main timeline. That's another thing. So there's lots of things that Final Cut needs. Like I said, I still use Final Cut, but I have 20-some years in using Final Cut, so I'm very familiar with it. Matthew says, Richard, do you genuinely believe Apple's Final Cut team is working on a major update? I don't believe that, Matthew. I hope that. I hope that. So we've been discussing this for weeks and months. They're either working on a new version, a brand new version, or they're going to let it just go off into the sunset and give us one bolt-on feature here and one bolt-on feature there and one bug fix here and one bug fix there until it continuously goes down, 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 down. I don't think that's the case. I think of those two scenarios that they are working on a new version. That's what I think. I think and I hope. I think and I hope, yes. It'd be very disappointing if they're not working on a new version of Final Cut. Very disappointing. I'd be very disappointed in the whole scenario. Everybody involved, I'd be very disappointed. From Apple, from Tim Cook on down to the Final Cut Pro team. I hope, and I really don't think that's the case. I think they are working on a new version. Resolve had a nice update to the iPad version. That's very cool. I can't run Final Cut and I can't run Resolve on my iPad. I have an iPad Air. It's an old one. But I can run LumaFusion. Did you see that Mark from Ripple interviewed that short film in motion, about that short film in motion? It was amazing what a $50 app can do. I did not see that. I spend so much of my time dealing with Final Cut, I don't get a chance to go to other channels very often. Once in a while, but not very often. I just read some headlines about that. I don't know. Motion is not an NLE, so I'm not sure if I'd want to edit in motion, although I wish Final Cut would take their keyframe editor. I really like that a lot. Matthew says that he hopes so too. I love Final Cut. So here's what I think. I think realistically, they have to be working on something. I don't think realistically they would have just abandoned Final Cut. That doesn't make sense to me in any world. Does that make sense to me? So I think they're working on Final Cut, something good. Let's hope so. Now, don't forget to go over there and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up over there while you're watching this. That's always appreciated, the little bits of information. If I find out more about the Creative Summit, of course, I'll come back on and we'll talk about it. And I expect to be hearing something. Usually they have an announcement in July or no later than August, because people have to make preparations. I'm pretty sure it'll be in November again, because that's what it's been for the last 3 or 4 years. You don't release an iPad version and then abandon the app. I think the iPad version's been in the works for years, don't you? So they're not going to just stop. Yeah, I don't think they're going to abandon the app, so that's fine. But I don't think the iPad version and the Mac version are the same. I think there's two different. One is an entry level. The iPad version is an entry level, and Final Cut for the Mac is a more robust, a lot more features, professional features, speed for the mid and high end level. So I have there's a couple of other things. Let's go over, let me get my list out here. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, let me see. Logic, I said, Logic Pro's been updated. Now, this is one thing I want to just bring up. Well, we have this. Let me bring this up. This is very, very cool. What's new? Final Cut Pro, what's new in 10.6.6? Free course. Free course by our longtime friend, Ian Anderson. So the deal is this. You can watch some of the episodes right from the get-go, but you have to log in. You have to sign up.
And a very warm welcome to this What's New in Final Cut Pro 10.6.6 course. In the next several videos, I'm going to show you not just the basics of what's new in Final Cut Pro.
So over there at Mac Pro Video, the What's New in Final Cut Pro 10.6.6, the course is free. The course is free. You get the first 2 or 3 episodes. Watch this course absolutely free. You don't have to pay for it like you do other places. Other places you're charging for the update. You don't have to here. Now you have to, you get the introduction, importing. You have to sign in to your account in order to see the whole course, but there's no charge for it. There's no charge. So that's over there at Mac Pro Video. Free course, which is very cool. From our friend, don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Appreciate it. I asked to be in the beta for Captioner FCP plugin. Should get my invite today. Brian, the developer, is bringing some new features to it. Yep, App Captionator is very cool. I'd like to see Final Cut incorporate some of these caption features natively, the way that Premiere and Blackmagic has. Right now, there's a bunch. Lumberjack Systems, of course, it's much more robust than just a captioner. It's also a text-based editor. It's an actual NLE that's available in the App Store. If you don't want to buy, you can buy a subscription. You can try the subscription out if you want. And if you like it, you can buy the NLE in the App Store. That's pretty robust. I use Blackmagic Resolve Studio for captioning things, captioning and subtitling both. And I use Descript because, let me tell you something, Descript, I would drop it at this point if I was just using it for captions because I have Resolve Studio that can do captions very, very effectively. I got to watch my time because I have to go to Frederick and I'm filming something up there. I would drop Descript if it was just, I initially got it for captions. They had 10 hours of captions per month for, I don't know, $10 years ago. So I started using it then just for the captions. Descript has one of the best audio editors of anybody. It has a couple features I wish it had. It doesn't have a scrolling timeline, but it does have a paging timeline. So when the playhead gets to the end, it jumps back, everything scrolls to the beginning, and then it starts over again. I mean, then the playhead doesn't leave the screen the way Final Cut Pro does. Final Cut Pro playhead leaves the screen, and it also, on the iPad version, also leaves the screen. Completely leaves the screen. It's ridiculous that it does that in 2023. But Descript doesn't. It doesn't scroll in the center like Logic does, but it does page. So your playhead is always on screen. But it has fantastic features that nobody else has for editing audio. It's fantastic. You bring an audio file in, it transcribes the audio file, it identifies the speakers, the individual speakers, you can name them. It color codes the different speakers with different colors. And it has a timeline with the captions over top of the audio waveforms, and you can drag a caption to drag the audio waveform. You can drag a caption and it edits the audio waveform underneath of it. You can also do a multicam, but I love that. You also have a script above the timeline, the script, and you can highlight any text in there to delete it. Or you can copy it and paste it somewhere else in the timeline, somewhere else in the script. So the script is live and the captions in the timeline are also live. You can drag a click on a word and drag to the left to delete a section. So you can actually edit by dragging the captions. I really, really like that for editing audio. He said whisper text editing and custom motion templates are the top 3 banner items for Captionator. Very good. Jacob says, one of my favorite things is that for remove filler words like ums, ahs, etc., the accessibility is great there. Yes, it absolutely is. I've used that in the past, but the problem is sometimes it clips a little bit too much of the next word, and I have to go back and find. When I hear a clip, I have to go back and expand it. You can also, from Descript, you can also export a Final Cut Pro XML, Logic Pro XML, Pro Tools XML, whatever they use, projects, or a text transcript. Like, for example, this video we're doing today. I'll take the audio from this and I'll run it through probably Resolve, and it'll transcribe all the audio, and then I'll save a text file of all the audio, time-stamped text file of all the audio for this, for example, this. And I can always go back and reference it. I can always go back to the transcript, reference, here's the time code, here's what I talked about, and I can go back and either edit it or I can spit out of this little section of it. I really, really like text editing in an NLE. It's really very, very effective. So like I said, I use Blackmagic Studio and I use Descript at this point, those two. I have Mac Whisper as well. But I don't do it in Final Cut because I have to use a third-party app. The other two, I can just do them both natively. So it depends on what I'm doing. It just depends on what I'm doing. So what else do we have? Let me see what else we have. So we got what's new in Final Cut Pro. 10.6.6 over there at Mac, behind Mac Studio. Let me pull this up. I want to bring this up because I want to talk about this.
For storytelling.
So this is our friends over there at LumaFusion doing a behind-the-scenes video.
Our only goal is to make the best editor for storytelling. I'm Terry, and I'm the co-founder of LumaTouch, and we make LumaFusion, a multi-track editor for mobile. Our team from Salt Lake and Seattle is really small. It's under 20 people. We're all from the video industry or the music industry, or we've been shooters or video editors. So we're all very passionate about what we're doing.
The great thing is there's like this energy here where we all just genuinely love to create.
My point is this. How fantastic would it be if the Final Cut Pro team was that open? Wouldn't it be fantastic if they were open and they could bring us in and show us their workspaces and show us some of the things that they might be working on? The LumaTouch team is so open and transparent, and they talk about things that haven't come out yet, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm not blaming the Final Cut Pro team because I know it's Apple corporate culture that's doing that. But wouldn't it be refreshing, no matter what NLE you have, that you can go and see how they work?
Like customers, then we're trying to figure out what those issues are, collate them, get data, get all that stuff over to the developers, and get the developers to fix it and put out a new build with the fixes in.
In truth, what makes
It's fantastic. The openness to them is fantastic. And there's a couple of other advantages to LumaFusion, why I really like them. First off, I've interviewed Terry and Chris half a dozen times, maybe more over the years, since way before Final Cut for iPad came out. And LumaFusion, I like it better than Final Cut for iPad. Everything that I've seen, I like it better. Number one, it's got a scrolling timeline. Number two, it has an enhanced magnetic timeline, which means it has a magnetic timeline. It also has the ability to lock clips in place, to detach them from the magnetic timeline. It has the ability to color code clips. It has an timeline overview under the viewer that you can see your entire timeline, no matter where you are, and you can edit, you can click in there and jump to that portion of the timeline. It also runs on Android. It also runs on Chromebooks. It also runs on iPhones. It has a much, much bigger market than the restrictive market of Final Cut on the iPad. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Final Cut on the iPad. I'm just saying, if you don't like the subscription, I don't like the subscription, and it's not about $4.99 a month. That has nothing to do with anything. If you don't want a subscription, give LumaFusion a try. It's $29, one-time fee. They haven't charged any upgrade fee for years. They do have add-on apps, add-on modules. They have an Final Cut Pro XML for $19, and they have a multicam, which is $19. But that's a one-time fee. There's never any more fee for that. Apple will add text editing to the Final Cut Pro, and it will be better than most. I don't care. They're first with their feature. It's just that it's great. Okay, Eric, here's the problem with that. It took 12 years to get the industry standard dupe detection. Is it better than everybody else's? No, it's not. It's not better than everybody else's version of dupe detection. So 12 years, and I've been in conversations with people. Why do you want dupe detection? Tell us why you think it's a good idea. That was 4 years ago. We shouldn't have to tell you it's a good idea. It's an industry standard. Everybody uses it. Of course it's beneficial. Of course. But it took 12 years to get an industry standard NLE feature, dupe detection, and it's not better than everybody else's version of it. Not at all. It's a very vanilla version of dupe detection. But you had to wait 12 years. That's why your argument doesn't hold for me. It may for you. It doesn't hold for me. But the point is they're trailing Resolve, they're trailing Premiere at this point with text-based editing. Do I think it's coming? Absolutely. I don't care about dupe detection. That's not the point. A lot of other people do care. Don't be one of these curmudgeons that said, I don't want any features that I don't care about. I only want features that I care about. I want features for everybody. I want everybody's features that are reasonable. Do I use dupe detection? Yes, I used it in my film for sure. But it's not something that it was in my lists. It was in my list. But the point is that it took them 12 years to deliver it, and it's not better than everybody else's. So just the fact that it's taking a long time doesn't mean text-based editing is going to be better than anybody's. With Apple's funds, they should be leading the way with Final Cut Pro, not trailing. Yeah, I don't know how much money Final Cut team gets, but there's lots of teams that put out apps for free, right? Lots of Safari, Mac OS, iOS, tvOS, iPad OS, Keynote, Text Edit. All those apps are free. They cost Apple money. So I want Apple to be back as a leader again. They haven't. When was the last? Tell me the last thing they were innovative about. Tell me the last thing in Final Cut Pro that was innovative. I can't even remember. You go back to the magnetic timeline. Okay. That was 2011. That's 11, 12, 13 years ago, 12, 13, 12 years ago. What has been innovative? Remember, they told us for the longest time that when Final Cut came out, I'll never forget, they said, no. You don't want color wheels. No. You don't want color wheels. The color board. We want you to correct color in the color board. You don't need color wheels like everybody else has. Right? And then years later, they said, oh, well, it's kind of an industry standard and colorists don't want to use the color board, so here's color wheels. It'll be fine with the roadmap, even if major updates are 2024. Just let us know what you're working on. Yeah, a roadmap would be nice. Look like, once again, how open LumaFusion is. Now, I realize they're smaller, and I realize the team, the Final Cut Pro team, probably wants to tell us things, and I realize that Apple is clamping down on them for whatever reasons. I don't know all the reasons. Yeah, give us a roadmap. Multicam is what regards? Being innovative? No, it's not innovative. Final Cut Pro 7 had multicam. Premiere has multicam. Everybody's got multicam. It's not innovative. I'm glad it's there. All the money in the world does not make you innovative. Hard work might sow it through. 3D text. There you go. Listen, I did. Eric, that's very funny. 3D text, yeah. You know, the funny thing is, when 3D text came out, that was their big thing, selling point. Oh my God, we got 3D text. Really? You had many other things that were better than 3D text in that update, but 3D text they were talking about. Whatever. Yes, I'd happily pay full price for Final Cut Pro 11. Shh. Don't let Final Cut Pro team hear you say that, Brett. Let's say $99 if you already own Final Cut Pro 10. Let's say we get a $99 upgrade. That's what I'd like to see. Or whatever. Or, yes, if we had to pay full price for Final Cut Pro 11, if it was worth it, yes. I don't mind paying for a new version of an app that we've had for 12 years. That's not an issue with me. Removing background noise, mask stuff. But Apple makes that available to anybody that wants to use it. So that's not Final Cut specific. And other apps have that as well. So I'm not sure if that's that innovative. Mask stuff. When did the mask stuff come into being that's innovative? Would it be different if Steve Jobs was alive and running things? Absolutely. I have no doubt it'll be different. Steve Jobs took a hands-on to Final Cut. We know that from the Final Cut Pro documentary that I worked on with Brad Olson. Steve Jobs was hands-on with Final Cut Pro. I don't know if Tim Cook knows what Final Cut Pro is. I mean, it's just a joke, but that's my joke. Steve Jobs was hands-on. I don't know if Tim Cook does. Multicam was different from everyone else. What about the fact that they're having clicks in the audio with multicam editing? So you're saying multicam is innovative. Okay. It's been a while since but multicam itself is not innovative. Maybe the way they introduced it was better than some. Probably. That could be. But dupe detection's not. Even Canva and Adobe Express free app have a new video editing tools in 2023. Sometimes people say, Final Cut Pro should combine motion and compressor in the one app. What about Logic Pro? then it'd be like DaVinci Resolve, right? Then it would be like DaVinci Resolve. So I still use Final Cut. I'm going to continue to use Final Cut. I don't have to quit Final Cut in order to use Resolve. I don't have to quit Final Cut in order to use LumaFusion. I'm not going to. I still come and use it. The other thing is I have 1,500, 2,000 plugins for Final Cut Pro that I use. Lots of third-party plugins that I use with Final Cut, and I like a lot of them. I probably use 10 or 15% of them all the time. Jobs believed in Ubilos, and together Final Cut Pro would be in a far different place than it is now. That I have no doubt. I know now when it came back out in 2020, in 2010.0.3, but Final Cut Pro 7 had multicam, is my point. Final Cut Pro 7 had multicam. So is it better? I don't know what the best, to be honest with you, I don't know what the best multicam is in the NLEs. I don't know. Final Cut works well except for the audio clicks. That's the other odd thing. But let me say this. Cheers to the Final Cut Pro team. Cheers to the Final Cut Pro team. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I wish you just do a little bit more of it. A little bit more of a fantastic job. What you're doing is fine. It's a little bit slow, and there's been some stagnation, but here's to the Final Cut Pro team. This stuff is interesting. A hint, it's almost 100% water with a little teeny flavor of fruit juices, but it's just so convenient for me. It's no calories, and it quenches my thirst. It has a little bit of flavor. It's a little better than drinking plain water, so that's my new favorite. Yeah, so Final Cut Pro 10.0 didn't have multicam. It came out in 10.0.3. Has it changed that much since then? I don't know. There's still some issues with Final Cut 10.0. So let me show you what I'm doing today, where I'm going to be doing. Let me go over there. This is what I'll be doing. I'm going to this, they had this high wheelers race. Let me pull myself up there. They had this high wheelers race in Frederick, Maryland, where they race these old bicycles around and around. It's like one of the only ones they have in the world. People from all over the world come to this.
Hopefully they don't whistle or whatever. Oh, it's gonna be a couple good.
Frederick, Maryland, are you ready? At the sound of the air horn, let the games begin.
So I'll be filming this again today. See, the way I use my iPhone, I have the 3 different camera lenses. I have 4 now, and I constantly zoom in and out when I'm filming by pressing a button. Filmic Pro, you can't do that. You have to stop and go through 4 or 5 clicks to switch cameras, and you lose the action. But I'd really love this event. We're going to go up there and sit out there. It's not too hot today. So this is what I'm going to be doing this afternoon, starting at noon. Starting at noon, that's what I'll be doing. Eric says coffee and water. I couldn't go 10 feet without a bathroom break. I always got to make sure I know where the bathrooms are. Absolutely. Torgrim says, Why can't we get Luke Tristram, one of the other guys at Apple, on your show to talk to us? Well, first off, Luke Tristram, that's never going to happen. They can talk to me after they leave Apple, but they can't say much about what happened during their time at Apple. I've talked to Steve Bays. Don't forget to give me thumbs up. Some thumbs up there. Appreciate it. I've talked to Steve Bays, and I've talked to some other people from Apple. Luke Tristram's no longer on the Final Cut Pro team. He left. He's back in Australia. He's now a consultant for Final Cut Pro. A consultant. Thank you. Thanks for that thumbs up. I appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe as well over there and ring the notification bell. I'm going to plan on keeping on doing these. If you like them, give me the thumbs up. Keep on doing these on Saturday mornings. Thank you very much. Another thumbs up. Keep on doing these on Saturday mornings. I'll figure something to talk about. You can come on if I find out anything specific. Today we talked about Mac Pro Video has a 10.6.6 free course available. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. You get the free course. Alexandra says more AI features like Adobe is doing with all their apps. Absolutely. Penny farthings in the UK. That's what they call them here at this race too. Work in progress. Thank you for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Penny farthings. That's exactly what they call them. These people, they've been practicing this is the once a year event. Thank you for this thumbs up. Appreciated. They practice all year long. I know some people that are going to be in it, but it's just a very, very unusual, unique event. This is one of the people from the UK are coming today to that event. Now, I'm not going to stream it live. They do have a live stream, but I'm going to film it. I have my iPhone 14 Pro. I have 4 lenses I can choose. The ultra wide, 2x zoom, and 3x zoom, and I can switch through them without stopping recording back and forth, so I can do all that. And I have it because I think I need a sunshade. I'm going to have it on a gimbal. I have a bigger gimbal. If I need the sunshade, I have a bigger gimbal. If I don't need the sunshade, I have a more lightweight, an Insta360 Flow gimbal that I can use. But it's on a monopod because there'll be lots of people around. And we'll be in the sunlight. I hope there's a little bit of shade. That'd be very cool. So I'm going to film it on the gimbal. I'm going to edit some clips together, and then I'll come back and put it out probably tomorrow on Sunday, the video of the actual, some of the event, the people. I'm going to try to interview some of the people, but it's a little bit hard because they have you behind barriers. We'll see. Those bikes look ridiculous. It's not the idea of looking ridiculous. They're difficult to run. They're really something. Well, if so many Final Cut Pro halves left, there should be plenty to talk to. But yeah, but they can only say so much. They can only say so much. Hey, Richard, I think my hope is very low for Final Cut Pro. Apple need to invest more, innovate on Final Cut Pro unless they are currently rewriting the code for Final Cut Pro. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And in Norway, we call them Velttepeter. Fall over Peter. Huh. Well, I'm not sure what that means. Are you planning on upgrading my iPhone to 15? Absolutely. I do every year. Anytime, listen, if they have new video features, I'm all in. I'm all in. My iPhone 15 Pro Max, which I'll be using today, I film with that more than anything. I do have a Lumix S5 Mark II X, which is my new full-frame camera, which is doing fantastic. I shoot in 6K with that thing. It's really good in low light. It's fantastic. But I don't have it with me all the time. I'm not going to take it today because I'm not planning on using it. So I'll take my iPhone 16, my iPhone 14 Pro Max, and film with that. I have 4 lenses I can switch between. I have pro audio going into the side with my DJI wireless mic system. it's very, and I'm going to have it on a gimbal, but it's going to be on a monopod. I'm going to do a series of some of these equipment that I have for my live streaming when I'm live coming up. I have a new system I have coming up that I'm going to be able to demonstrate things, and I'll show you the monopod I have and the ball heads and the quick release plates and the different gimbals that I use. I'd like to know what Alex Gollner thinks about Final Cut Pro these days, since he has been such a big advocate. He's been a mixed advocate, not recently. He's been a new white paper for Final Cut Pro for ProRes RAW plugins was released yesterday, so that's kind of something new about Final Cut Pro. Yep. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, indeed. Look at this. No birds. Look how green it is. That's not enhanced. That's the natural beauty of my backyard. We see deer out here, of course, all the time. Sorry, I was muted. But there's not any birds out there today. But that's my backyard. That is my backyard. So anyway, I'm going to go up and film the penny farthings, the high wheel race in Frederick coming up. It starts at 12 noon. Don't forget to give me thumbs up. I appreciate the thumbs up you've given me so far. And look, like I said, we'll be back here every Saturday. The time's going to vary, depending on what I have to do. Today I got to be in Frederick at 11:30, so I couldn't do it at 11 o'clock. And what time is it now? It's 10:09. I'm going to be getting off here in a few minutes and get ready for that. I'm kind of ready. I have a system set up. I have take umbrellas and stuff in case we get a shower. And I found that when I film under the sun, that my iPhone actually overheats after a while. The sun baking the iPhone sitting on top. So I have a sunshade. Maybe I'll pull that up for you to show you what I've got. I have an actual sunshade that I made out of cardboard and tape. Let me see if I have that here. I don't know. Oh, I know where it is. It's on the... let me see if I can find it. I'll show you the gimbal that I have. I think I will. Maybe I won't. Well, anyway, I use the Rode Wireless Go. I have one mic on me, one on the, and I have one on a Sennheiser MKE 400. Let me pull this up. Oh, I posted it over there at FCPX.tv. That's what I did. Oh, I posted it over there at FCP. Here we go. Let me, X.TV. That's what I did. Stop. Come on now. Turn that off. Turn that off. Let me go over to... hold on one second. Do. There it is. We got it. here it is. Hold on a second. I'll pull it up here. This is my gimbal. So you can see, pull this over top. You can see, pull myself in the middle. Let me see which direction I am. So this is the gimbal. There's the Sennheiser microphone. That microphone is plugged into a DJI wireless mic, and it's transmitted to the mic is, the receiver is plugged directly into the iPhone 14 Pro Max at a lightning port. So it's going there, and you can see the sunshade that I have are built around the iPhone 14. So the sun, first off, I can see it because the sun gets on the screen. It makes it difficult to see. And that gimbal is the Weeble S. It's a really heavy-duty gimbal, holds up to 3 pounds. But when I have the sunshade, I have a small rig cage, an oversized cage. I have the DJI mic plugged into the side. It's too heavy for a regular phone gimbal. I do have a regular phone gimbal. My favorite by far is the Insta360 Flow. It's the best that I've seen. There's a lot of buzz and speculation on the internet about the movie The Creator and how director of photography Greg Fraser using FX3 ProRes RAW for the entire film. Good to know. Nice. I love Sennheiser. Yes, I have an MKE 600 that I use for handheld, and then I have the MKE 400 that I use for audio when I'm interviewing somebody with my iPhone, or I also use it with the Lumix S5 Mark IIX. It does a fantastic job. Not only does it do a great job with the audio, I can keep one on me. I can turn it on and off. The front-facing camera, I can keep it on and off. It records inside the transmitters as well. So I have backup audio. If there's any kind of a problem with transmission between me and the camera, me and the phone, it records separate WAV files, 24-bit WAV file inside the transmitters. So I already have backup audio. It saved me a couple times. It has saved me a couple times. All right, everyone, I am going to get out of here and get ready to go. Don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate all the thumbs up that you've given. And if nothing happens during the week, I might have a couple of interviews coming up. I have some different interviews coming up that I'm working on. And I'm going to do a whole series of demonstrations of my mobile setup. I have a new setup that I'll be doing in a different part of the studio, just to demonstrate things. This setup is not conducive to that because I really can't demonstrate things. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. So I'm going to get out of here. Give me a thumbs up before you leave. It's appreciated. And if I don't see you before, if anything happens with Final Cut, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want. Go over there. The Facebook group, it's a good place, Final Cut Radio TV. Just do a search for that. You'll find it. My Zoom H5 has backup recording with lower level also. There you go. I have the option to do that lower level thingy, the backup in case you get too loud. But I'm going to get out of here and head up to Frederick, do the High Wheelers race. I'm not doing it live. I'm going to film it, and then I'll cut together a shortened highlights reel. Probably have it out tomorrow. If not tomorrow, have it out Monday. So pay attention to the YouTube channel, Richard Taylor TV, and my Facebook page. It'll be there as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for giving me the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Appreciate it very much. And I'll see you, if not before, I'll see you next Saturday. Thanks a lot.